The Starfire, a state-of-the-art human spacecraft, glided silently through the vast expanse of space. Captain Orion Kane stood at the ship's helm, his sharp eyes scanning the control panel with laser-like focus. He had spent years mastering space travel, and his every movement reflected his calm confidence. The soft hum of the ship's AI, known as EOS, filled the cabin, her voice a constant presence in his long journeys. "Captain," EOS chimed in, "we are approaching the expanse, an uncharted region. Long-range scanners detect unusual energy signatures. Proceed with caution." Kane nodded, his expression hardening. The expanse was a wild and dangerous zone, where only the bravest explorers dared venture. He wasn't one to shy away from danger, but caution was paramount. "Understood, EOS. Activate stealth mode. Let's keep our approach silent and unseen." The sleek hull of the Starfire shimmered briefly before vanishing into the blackness. EOS had been Kane's companion through numerous missions, and her sophisticated AI made her more than just a tool. She was a trusted ally. Together, they had survived the unthinkable, and Kane knew that trust was crucial now more than ever. As they neared the expanse, Kane's thoughts wandered to his mission. His orders were clear: investigate the unknown energy readings that had baffled Earth scientists. It was supposed to be a reconnaissance mission, but deep down, Kane knew that nothing in the expanse would be that simple. Suddenly, EOS's voice broke through his thoughts. "Captain, we have a situation. Multiple alien vessels have entered the sector. Their technology is unfamiliar, and their weapons are charged. I recommend raising shields." "Damn it," Kane muttered, immediately springing into action. "EOS, initiate defensive protocols and prepare for evasive maneuvers." The Starfire's shields crackled to life just as the alien ships opened fire, beams of energy streaking through the dark. The ship shook violently, throwing Kane off balance. Alarms blared, and EOS's voice became more urgent. "We've taken a direct hit, shields down to 60%. Captain, this is not a fight we can win." Kane's jaw clenched. He quickly assessed the situation. Outnumbered and outgunned, he had no choice but to run. "Plot a course for the nearest planet. We need to lose them in the atmosphere." The Starfire roared forward, dodging incoming fire as it made its way toward an alien planet below. The ship's thrusters burned brightly, pushing it to its limits. But the alien ships were relentless, their attacks growing more precise with each volley. "Brace for impact," EOS shouted. The ship plunged into the planet's atmosphere, shaking violently as it fought against the planet's gravity. The surface below was a sea of dense forests, their glowing trees casting an eerie light. With a final burst of speed, Kane guided the Starfire toward a clearing, but the ship was barely holding together. The crash was brutal. Metal screeched and sparks flew as the Starfire skidded across the ground, coming to a jarring halt in the heart of the alien wilderness. Kane's vision blurred as the world around him spun. For a moment, everything was silent. "EOS, report," he groaned, pulling himself from the wreckage. "Severe damage sustained. Systems failing. I can no longer maintain full operational integrity," EOS replied, her voice distorted and fading. Kane's heart sank. The Starfire, his lifeline, was crippled, and EOS, his constant companion, was on the brink of shutting down. He looked out at the strange, bioluminescent forests surrounding the crash site. This was no friendly environment, and they were alone. Or so he thought. As Kane staggered out of the wreckage, his senses sharpened. The alien planet was unlike anything he had seen before. Strange flora illuminated the landscape, casting an otherworldly glow over everything. The air was thick with the hum of unseen creatures, and the ground pulsed softly beneath his feet. Suddenly, movement caught his eye. Emerging from the shadows of the glowing trees were three figures. Aliens, tall and lean, with skin that shimmered like the plants around them. They moved with grace, their eyes fixed on Kane with wary interest. Humans, one of them spoke, her voice smooth yet edged with suspicion. She stepped forward, her eyes sharp and calculating. She wore intricate armor, her stance one of command. Her name, as Kane would soon learn, was Vera, the leader of this group. Kane's muscles tensed. He didn't know if they were hostile, but he couldn't take any chances. He reached for the blaster on his belt, his gaze never leaving the alien woman. "Easy," Vera said, holding up a hand. "We mean no harm, but you've invaded our territory." Kane's grip on his blaster tightened. "I didn't exactly choose to crash here." A second alien stepped forward, her posture calm and her face full of curiosity. Lyra, a scientist of sorts, spoke with a gentle tone. "We've been tracking your ship for some time. You're lucky to be alive after that crash." Kane nodded but didn't lower his weapon. "And who are you exactly?" Vera crossed her arms. "We are the Alari, protectors of this region. You're far from home, human, and you're not the first to wander into the expanse." Lyra's gaze softened as she studied Kane. "Your technology is fascinating, but we've seen what happens to those who linger here." "Which is?" Kane asked. Third figure appeared, this one younger and less guarded. Rin, barely an adult by Alari standards, had a mischievous grin on his face. "They usually don't last long." Kane's mind raced. He didn't know if these aliens were friends or foes, but one thing was clear. He needed their help if he was going to survive. The Starfire was beyond repair, and Eos was fading fast. Vera sized him up one more time. "You may not have a choice. If you want to live, you'll need our guidance." Kane hesitated for a moment before holstering his blaster. "Fine, but if we're going to work together, we do it on equal terms." Vera smirked. "Agreed, but don't forget, you're in our world now." As the group moved deeper into the glowing forest, Kane couldn't shake the feeling that something much larger was at play here. The expanse was full of mysteries, and if he and the Alari were going to make it out alive, they would need to uncover them together. Captain Kane walked cautiously behind the Alari group, his senses heightened as they moved deeper into the bioluminescent forest. Every step felt like walking into the unknown, each flicker of light from the trees revealing more of the alien world that now surrounded him. He kept his eyes on Vera, the group's leader, who walked with a confidence that made it clear this was her domain. Beside her, Lyra, the scientist, scanned their surroundings with an almost childlike curiosity, while Rin moved with a relaxed gait, humming to himself. Kane's mind was spinning. He was stranded on an alien world, his ship destroyed, and his only allies were a mysterious group of aliens whose intentions he wasn't entirely sure of. But one thing was clear. He needed them if he had any hope of surviving. "You're quiet." Vera's voice broke the silence, her sharp eyes glancing back at him. "Not what I expected from a human." Kane frowned but didn't respond immediately. He had learned long ago that in situations like these, silence was sometimes the best defense. "Your people are known for being loud, brash, impulsive," she continued, her tone laced with a mixture of amusement and challenge. "We speak when we need to," Kane finally replied, his voice steady. "And right now, I'm more interested in surviving than talking." Vera raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "Fair enough, but if you're planning on sticking with us, you might want to open up. This place," she gestured to the glowing trees around them, "has a way of testing your resolve." Kane glanced around. The forest was beautiful, no doubt, but there was something unsettling about it. The way the trees pulsed with light, the strange sounds that seemed to come from nowhere, and the ground that felt like it was alive beneath his feet. It all felt like the planet itself was watching them. Lyra, ever the scientist, noticed his unease. "The flora here is unlike anything we've seen before. The trees are connected in a way that resembles a neural network, like the planet itself has a consciousness." "Great," Kane muttered. "A living planet, just what I needed." Rin laughed from the back. "Don't worry, human. If the trees wanted you dead, you wouldn't be standing here." Kane shot him a look, But before he could respond, Vera held up her hand, signaling the group to stop. The playful banter faded as all four of them stood still, listening. "What is it?" Kane whispered, his hand instinctively moving to the blaster at his side. Vera's expression hardened. "We're not alone." Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled, and from the shadows of the trees, a creature emerged. It was massive, towering above them with four legs that resembled the trunks of the bioluminescent trees, its body covered in thick, glowing moss. Its eyes, large and glowing with a soft green hue, fixed on the group with a predatory gaze. "Run!" Vera shouted, her voice cutting through the air. Without hesitation, the group scattered, sprinting through the forest as the creature let out a deafening roar and charged after them. Kane's heart pounded in his chest as he darted between the glowing trees, the ground shaking with each step the beast took. He could hear Vera and the others ahead, their footsteps barely audible over the sound of the creature's pursuit. Kane's instincts kicked in, and he veered off to the side, hoping to throw the creature off. His breath came in ragged gasps as he ducked behind a large tree, pressing his back against its glowing trunk. For a moment, he held his breath, listening. The sound of the creature's heavy footsteps grew fainter as it chased after the others. He allowed himself a brief moment of relief before realizing the danger the others were still in. Gritting his teeth, he pulled out his blaster and cautiously made his way back toward the path the creature had taken. Up ahead, Vera, Lyra, and Rin had managed to find some cover behind a cluster of large rocks, but the creature was circling them, its massive form blocking any escape. Vera had her weapon drawn, but it was clear that the creature was too powerful for their small arms to bring down. "We need a plan," Kane shouted as he approached, drawing the attention of the others. Vera's eyes flicked to him, her expression unreadable. "You've got one." Kane scanned the area. The trees, they pulsed with light, connected like Lyra had said, as if they were part of a larger organism. He didn't know if it would work, but it was their best shot. "Lyra," he called out, "you said these trees are connected, right? Can they communicate?" Lyra blinked, surprised by the question. "In theory, yes, but we've never seen it happen in real time." Kane didn't hesitate. "We need to make them react. If this creature is part of the planet, maybe the trees can help us." Vera looked skeptical, but she didn't have a better plan. "How do you propose we do that?" Kane holstered his blaster and knelt beside one of the glowing roots that snaked through the ground. "We send a signal." Without waiting for a response, Kane drew his knife and pressed it into his palm, drawing blood. He placed his hand against the root, hoping that the trees would sense the life force within him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the light from the trees began to intensify, pulsing faster and faster. The creature, which had been preparing to strike, suddenly hesitated, its glowing eyes flickering as if confused. The ground trembled again, but this time, it wasn't from the creature's movements. The trees reacted. The glowing branches began to move, twisting and writhing as they extended toward the creature. Vines shot out from the ground, wrapping around its massive legs, pulling it back with a force Kane hadn't anticipated. The creature let out another roar. But this time, it was one of frustration as the forest itself seemed to turn against it. Within moments, the creature was immobilized, trapped by the very trees that had once seemed like a passive part of the landscape. Kane let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Vera approached, her eyes wide with disbelief. "I've never seen anything like that." Kane shrugged, wiping the blood from his hand. "Neither have I." But it worked. Lyra's eyes gleamed with excitement. "The trees responded to you. This planet, it's more alive than we thought." Rin, grinning widely, clapped Kane on the back. "Looks like you're full of surprises, human." Kane glanced back at the creature, now subdued by the forest, and then at the glowing trees that had saved them. He didn't know what kind of connection he had just tapped into. But one thing was clear. This planet was unlike any other. And if they were going to survive, They would need to understand its mysteries. The aftermath of their encounter with the massive creature left Captain Kane and the Alari group both shaken and intrigued. The bioluminescent forest had saved them, reacting to Kane's blood in a way none of them had anticipated. As the creature lay motionless, entangled in the glowing vines, the group gathered their breath, the gravity of their situation setting in. Vera was the first to break the silence. "We can't stay here. Whatever that thing was, it might not be the only one. And the trees, I don't trust them." Kane nodded in agreement, though part of him was fascinated by what had just transpired. The planet had responded to him, but he had no idea why or how. His gaze drifted back to the pulsing trees, the glow now softer, more subdued. Was the planet alive? Was it watching them? Lyra, the scientist, couldn't contain her curiosity any longer. "This is incredible. I've never seen a planet react to an external stimulus like this before. It's like the trees have their own nervous system. We need to study this." Rin chuckled. "Study? I'm all for science, but I'd rather not stick around long enough to find out what else this planet has in store." Vera's sharp gaze cut through their conversation. "We're not here to study. We're here to survive. And right now, that means moving." Kane agreed, but his mind was still racing with questions. "We need to understand what we're dealing with. If this planet can react to us, we need to know how and why. It could be the key to surviving here." Vera looked unconvinced but didn't argue. "Fine, but we're not staying here. We move, we find shelter, and then we figure out what's going on." With the decision made, the group set off once more, leaving the subdued creature behind. The bioluminescent forest stretched out before them, a maze of glowing trees and strange sounds. As they moved deeper into the unknown, Kane couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Hours passed as they trekked through the dense forest. The strange flora continued to pulse with light, the ground beneath them soft and alive. Kane had the unsettling sensation that the planet was aware of their every step. Despite the eerie beauty, the group remained on high alert, their weapons ready. It wasn't long before they came across a series of rocky outcrops. Vera, ever the practical leader, spotted a cave nestled between two towering cliffs. "We'll rest here for now. It's defensible, and we can regroup." The group entered the cave cautiously, their footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The air inside was cool, a stark contrast to the humid warmth of the forest outside. Kane immediately began scanning the area for any signs of danger, while Lyra marveled at the strange glowing crystals embedded in the walls. "This place, it's like the planet is alive in every way," Lyra said, her voice filled with awe. "These crystals are pulsing with the same energy as the trees." Rin chuckled, leaning against the wall. "Well, let's hope these crystals aren't about to wrap us up like the trees did to that creature." Kane, however, was more concerned with their safety than the crystals. "We need to set up a perimeter. I don't trust that we're safe here, even inside this cave." Vera nodded. "Agreed. We'll take turns keeping watch." As the group settled in, the cave seemed to hum with a low, almost imperceptible vibration. Kane couldn't help but feel uneasy. The planet was strange enough, but the cave amplified the sensation that they were not alone. While Rin kept watch at the entrance of the cave, Lyra continued to examine the glowing crystals. Kane sat near the entrance, his back against the wall, his mind racing with thoughts of the planet and its secrets. Vera, ever the stoic leader, was pacing, clearly restless. Suddenly, Lyra's voice echoed through the cave, filled with excitement. "Kane, Vera, come look at this." Kane and Vera exchanged a glance before moving over to where Lyra was kneeling by the wall. She was examining one of the larger crystals, which had begun to pulse more intensely as she touched it. "What is it?" Kane asked, his voice laced with caution. Lyra's eyes were wide with wonder. "These crystals, they're resonating with the energy of the planet. Think they're connected to the same network that controls the trees." Vera crossed her arms, her skepticism clear. And why should that matter? Lyra's excitement grew. Because if I'm right, these crystals could be a way to communicate with the planet. Kane's eyebrows shot up. Communicate? You're saying we can talk to the planet? Lyra nodded enthusiastically. Yes, or at least we could try. If we can tap into this network, we might be able to understand what's going on here. Maybe even figure out a way to control it. Vera's expression darkened. Or we could trigger something that we're not prepared for. Kane considered the risks. The idea of communicating with a planet, especially one that had already shown it could react to them, was dangerous, but it was also their best chance at understanding the situation they were in. And perhaps it was their key to escaping. I think we should try, Kane said, his voice firm. If we can understand the planet, we might be able to figure out how to survive here. Vera stared at him for a long moment before finally nodding. Fine, but we do this carefully. No unnecessary risks. Lyra smiled, already moving to set up her equipment. I'll need some time to analyze the crystals and figure out how to send a signal. But if I'm right, we could be on the verge of a major breakthrough. As Lyra worked, the rest of the group kept watch. The cave, with its glowing crystals and strange hum, seemed to grow more alive with each passing moment. Kane felt the weight of the situation pressing down on him. They were on the edge of something incredible, or something disastrous. Hours passed, and the air inside the cave grew thick with anticipation. Lyra had been working tirelessly, her equipment set up around the crystals, wires and sensors carefully placed to capture any data they could. Kane, Vera, and Rin watched from a distance, their nerves on edge. Ready? Lyra asked, her voice filled with excitement. Kane nodded. Do it. With a deep breath, Lyra pressed a button on her console, sending a small electrical pulse into the crystals. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the crystals began to glow brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the planet's energy. Suddenly, the cave itself seemed to come alive. The walls vibrated, and the air was filled with a soft, melodic hum. The crystals pulsed faster, and the ground beneath them trembled slightly. Then, a voice. A low, resonant voice that seemed to echo from the very core of the planet, filled the cave. You are not alone. The group froze, their hearts pounding as the voice reverberated through the cave. Kane's eyes widened in shock. The planet was speaking. The words echoed in the cave, lingering in the stillness. You are not alone. Kane's heart raced, his mind reeling from the surreal experience. Could the planet really be communicating with them? He glanced at Lyra, whose eyes were wide with a mix of fear and excitement. Vera, ever the pragmatist, broke the silence. What the hell was that? Lyra, shaking off the shock, moved quickly to her equipment. It's real. The crystals. They're responding to the signal I sent. It's like the planet is speaking to us through them. Rin, who had been cautiously watching from a distance, frowned. And what does it mean by not alone? Are there others here? Kane, still processing, stepped forward. It could mean a lot of things. Maybe the planet's alive, or there's something deeper at work here. Either way, we need to keep going. Lyra's hands hovered over her console. I can try to send another pulse. Maybe we can ask it something. Get more information. Vera tensed, her warrior instincts warning against provoking an unknown force. Or maybe we should leave it alone before we trigger something worse. Kane, weighing the risks, nodded to Lyra. Send the pulse, but be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with. Lyra pressed the button again, sending another pulse into the crystals. The cave vibrated once more, and the voice returned, deeper, more distinct this time. Why do you seek us? The voice resonated through their bodies, as if the entire planet were speaking directly to them. Kane felt a chill run down his spine. Us? He whispered, confused. Who are they? Vera took a step closer to the crystals, her gaze hard. Ask it what it means. Lyra's voice trembled as she spoke into her makeshift transmitter. Who are you? What do you want from us? A long pause followed, the air thick with tension. Then, the voice returned, softer now, but still powerful. "We are the keepers, guardians of this world. You have awakened us." The group exchanged worried glances. Kane's pulse quickened. Keepers, guardians. Of what? Before they could ask, the voice spoke again, this time more urgent. "Your arrival was not by chance. You are part of the great cycle. The planet has chosen you." Kane's throat tightened. Chosen us for what? The crystals pulsed wildly, and the voice grew louder, more forceful. "Balance must be restored. The cycle is breaking. You must help, or all will be lost." Stunned silence followed the proclamation. The weight of the words hung heavy in the air. The cycle is breaking. The planet, alive and sentient, had not only been observing them, but had a purpose for them. Rin let out a low whistle. "Well, that sounds ominous." Lyra, furiously typing into her console, was trying to make sense of the data streaming in from the crystals. It's like the planet's energy field is destabilizing. Whatever this cycle is, it seems critical to the balance of the planet's ecosystem. Vera's patience was wearing thin. Enough of the science. What do we actually need to do? Kane, still piecing together the fragments of information, stepped toward the crystals, his voice steady. "If the planet chose us, then we're meant to fix whatever's going wrong. But how?" The voice responded immediately, as if anticipating his question. "You must find the heart. It is the source of all life here. Without it, the planet will die." Lyra's eyes widened. The heart. That must be the core of the planet's energy. If it's failing, that could explain the instability. Kane nodded. "And we're supposed to find it." Vera crossed her arms, skepticism written on her face. "And where exactly do we find this heart?" Low rumble vibrated through the ground, and the crystals began to dim. The voice, now faint, whispered its final words. "Follow the path of light. It will guide you." Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the voice faded, leaving only the soft hum of the cave behind. The group stood in stunned silence, the enormity of their task sinking in. With the planet's cryptic instructions still fresh in their minds, the group wasted no time. They packed their gear and set out, following the subtle glow of the bioluminescent trees that now seemed to pulse in a distinct direction. Kane led the way, his thoughts racing. The planet was alive, sentient even, and they had been chosen to save it. The heart of the planet, whatever it was, held the key to their survival. But they had no idea how far they would have to go, or what dangers lay ahead. Hours passed as they traversed the alien landscape. The trees grew denser, their glow brighter, as if the planet itself was guiding them. The air grew thicker, the temperature rising with every step. Lyra kept a close watch on her equipment, monitoring the energy levels. "The further we go, the stronger the readings. We're getting closer." But closer to what? Kane wondered. He knew better than to trust anything fully. The planet had chosen them, yes, but for what purpose? And what would they find at the heart? Suddenly, Vera raised her hand, signaling them to stop. The forest had opened up into a massive clearing. In the center stood an enormous structure, an ancient, pulsating mass of crystal and rock. The heart. "It's beautiful," Lyra whispered, her voice filled with awe. But Vera wasn't looking at the heart. She was focused on the figures emerging from the shadows. The final confrontation. Out of the darkness, a group of alien creatures appeared. Tall, slender beings with glowing eyes and strange markings on their skin. They moved with a grace that was both unnerving and mesmerizing. Kane's hand instinctively moved to his weapon, but Vera held him back. "Wait." The leader of the creatures stepped forward, its gaze locked on Kane. It spoke in a language they couldn't understand, but the intent was clear. It was a warning. Lyra quickly scanned the beings. Their energy signatures are similar to the planet's. They must be connected to the heart. Cain stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "We're not here to harm you. We're here to help. The planet, the Keepers, told us to come." The alien leader studied him for a long moment before speaking in a broken version of their language. "You fix, or all die." The gravity of their mission sank in. The heart was failing, and if they didn't act soon, the entire planet, and everyone on it, would perish. Without hesitation, Cain and Lyra approached the heart, while Vera and Rin kept a close watch on the aliens. The energy around the heart was immense, almost overwhelming, but Lyra's equipment was able to pinpoint the problem. "The energy is unstable," she said, her voice tense. "We need to stabilize it, or it's going to collapse." Cain nodded. "Then let's do it." With the help of the alien creatures, Cain and Lyra worked quickly, using a combination of human technology and the planet's natural energy to stabilize the heart. It was delicate work, and every second counted. The ground shook violently as the heart began to pulse faster, its energy threatening to spiral out of control. "Almost there," Lyra said, her voice strained. Suddenly, the energy surged, and the heart glowed brighter than ever before. Cain braced himself, ready for the worst, but then the light softened, and the trembling stopped. Lyra let out a sigh of relief. "We did it. The heart is stable." The alien leader stepped forward, bowing its head in gratitude. "You saved us." Cain nodded, exhaustion washing over him. "We did what we had to." With the heart stabilized and the planet saved, Cain and the group stood at the edge of the forest, watching as the alien creatures disappeared into the trees. The planet was alive, its energy vibrant once more. "We did it," Vera said, a rare smile crossing her face. "Against all odds, we actually did it." Cain smiled, though he knew their journey wasn't over. They had saved the planet, but their adventure was far from complete. There were still questions to be answered, mysteries to be uncovered. As they set off back toward their ship, Cain couldn't help but feel a sense of purpose. The planet had chosen them, and they had proven themselves worthy. Whatever came next, they were ready. After all, they were human, and humans never stopped fighting.